Bueno, ahora sí, bienvenidos a todos, buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos una vez más en nuestro Demo Day. Muchas gracias a Sonamérica y a las autoridades de Sonamérica que nos acompañan hoy y también a los Hiring Partners y amigos de la casa que se suman una edición más de nuestro Demo Day. Tenemos nuestros alumnos de corte 16, que son las estrellas del día de hoy, que son los que nos van a estar presentando. Y hoy también vamos a tener una presentación de un proyecto final de la especialización de backend de 2 alumnos de corte 15. Muchos de ustedes como Hiring Partners ya han venido varias veces al Demo Day, con lo cual ya saben un poco cómo es la dinámica, pero también tenemos a nuevos Hiring Partners o nuevas personas que nos están acompañando hoy. Así que les voy a contar un poquito qué es lo que van a estar viendo. Parte de la currícula de nuestro programa de Foundations termina con un proyecto final, que es un MVP, que ellos tienen 6 semanas en total para desarrollarlo. Las primeras 3 semanas son de pensar la idea, hacer las pruebas de concepto, validarlas, y después tienen 2 semanas propiamente dichos de codificación, cuando están desarrollando. Y después tienen una semana más para trabajar en la presentación, armar la landing y terminar de pulir lo que hoy les van a estar presentando. Toda nuestra currícula es en inglés, con lo cual hoy la presentación va a ser en inglés también. Van a ser presentaciones en equipo de 8 minutos y después vamos a abrir la posibilidad a que ustedes les hagan preguntas. Y acá los que ya han venido varias veces saben que en realidad esperamos esas preguntas también, porque es la oportunidad de andar un poquito más en el proyecto, de que los conozcan un poco más. Con lo cual, siéntanse libres de hacer las preguntas. Si bien las presentaciones son en inglés, como les decía, las preguntas pueden hacerlas en español o en inglés, como ustedes prefieran. Hoy tenemos entonces, como les decía, 7 equipos de corte 16 que van a estar presentando y un proyecto de especialización corta de backend que van a estar presentando también ante ustedes. Antes de comenzar, le voy a pedir a Martín Dobat, gerente general de Sonamérica, que por favor nos regale unas palabras. Gracias.
Muy bien, bueno, buenas tardes. Buenas tardes a los alumnos, buenas tardes a los Hiring Partners. Gracias por acompañarnos. Gracias por acompañarnos también porque estamos por streaming en YouTube, a otros Hiring Partners que se suman, y entiendo que también las familias, ¿no?, de los alumnos que se están sumando online. Así que espectacular poder estar todos juntos aquí en este formato híbrido. Muy entusiasmados de recibir estas presentaciones luego de 9 meses de tanto trabajo y de incorporar distintas herramientas. Tienen la oportunidad de presentar eso. Estuve justo almorzando en jardín ahora hasta hace poco rato y estaban todos preparando y yendo y entrando y saliendo y sacándose fotos en el jardín, así que sabemos que hay un estado de ansiedad, un estado de nervios importante, probablemente largas noches sin dormir, así que bueno, sabemos que hacia la naturaleza de generar entregables, muchas veces hacia la naturaleza de nuestro trabajo cuando tenemos entregables, así que definitivamente que todos los que estamos acá creo que sabemos por lo que están pasando en este momento los equipos y los vamos a estar acompañando, pero también les vamos a estar haciendo buenas preguntas. Quiero incentivar mucho a nuestros Hiring Partners y también tenemos unos cuantos alumnis a que apoyemos estos equipos, obviamente en el formato de preguntas y de feedback, que definitivamente que enriquece mucho la dinámica. Bueno, muchas gracias. Desde Fundación Sonamérica, desde Sonamérica apoyamos a través de Fundación Sonamérica Holberton. Estamos felices de este proyecto, estamos felices de estar aportando a nuestra sociedad en lo que es la transformación digital, no solamente a través de el parque de negocios, sino a través de participar en la academia con esta propuesta de Holberton. Estamos felices de estar haciéndolo y una vez más aquí en esta etapa, en esta instancia de presentación de proyectos. Bueno, muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Martín. Y ahora sí, vamos con el primer proyecto de los distintos proyectos que estamos viendo hoy. Le pido por favor a Matías López, Ángel Piva, Bruno Rodríguez y Sajín Merik, que son los que crearon el proyecto AhorrApp, que bajen al escenario y que comiencen a presentarnos. Fuerte. Y un aplauso bien fuerte porque el primero que rompe el hielo siempre es el equipo que le cuesta un poquito más arrancar.
Hi everybody, how are you? Well, have you ever felt frustrated when someone spends less money for the same products you have bought? Well, we have. My name is Angel, and with Bruno, Sahin, and Matias, we developed the solution. AhorrApp is a web application where you can search products and create a shopping list to compare prices between the different supermarkets and choose the best place to buy and make your wallet happy. With AhorrApp, you can easily find the cheapest prices, compare your daily purchases with other supermarkets, and see the latest product prices. Now, we will introduce you to the technologies we use, starting from the front end.
Well, for the front end, we use Node.js with Vue.js, one of the JavaScript framework that is optimized for easy scaling. In the design, we use Tailwind CSS, focusing on the user experience to make it easy to use. AhorrApp is a mobile-first and a progressive web app. This means that you can install it on every device, for example, a mobile phone, and working like a native app. Now we are going to talk about the backend.
Well, when we started this project, we knew that one of the essential parts was going to be data, because we need to get this data from different sources, and we had to apply some processes before using in our database. The process we applied is transformation, loading, and the extraction. For the extraction part, we used a Python library called Beautiful Soup, and we scraped hundreds of pages. And for the transformation part, we use Excel for the cleaning and organizing our data. And before the loading part, we had to create a database before the loading the data. We decided to go with a SQLite database, relational database system, because our data had fixed structure and a one-to-many relationship. Before the, pardon, I'm un poco excited, but well, first we designed the schema of our database depending on the relations between the tables and the fields. And then we created Python scripts to load the data from the CSV files into our database. When our database was ready, we had to create an API to connect it from backend to the front end. We used the Django REST framework to create a RESTful API, and also we used the Django admin to create an admin panel that let us to administrate our database through the browser. And now we are going to talk about DevOps.
Well, we apply CI/CD methodologies using GitHub Actions. We implement continuous integration with automated tests for each code update. For example, Python unit test, Python test for syntax style, and Cypress. And to implement continuous delivery, we configured GitHub Action to deploy the application to the server only if the code passed all the tests. And also on the server, we have a various scripts. One of them performs an automatic check of the server status. In case of finding an error, it leaves the service and notifies the member of the group by email. Another of the script update the price of the product daily, and in case of error, it also sends an email to the team members.
Okay. During the project, we had many challenges, but one of the main of them was that most of technologies we use, like Django, GitHub Actions, Node.js, and Beautiful Soup, for example. So we had to find a way to use these technologies and implement to our project. Other of the challenges was preparing the data for the database, because each supermarket had a slightly different name for the same product. So we had to find a way to match this product. This process had to be manually, and it was time consuming. And now it's moment to see the magic of the app.
Now we, when we open our app, we can see all the products and search. For example, we can search coffee. There we can see that Tata has the cheapest price. Also, if we like, we can create a list of products. For example, water. I don't know, maybe whiskey. And beer. Only the essentials. Then in Mi Lista, we can see all the products, and maybe we can add some more for the prompt, or delete the products that we don't need. At the bottom, we can see all the totals for each supermarket. Also, we can install it. That's it. Thank you.
Well, we hope you liked our presentation and our app, por lo menos our chanchito. And we would like to invite you all to try our app. We hope that it's gonna be a part of your daily shopping routine. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hello. Well, first of all, congratulations for the job. Really,
Thank you.
very good product.
Thank you.
One of the questions that I want to see is, as part of the design of the solution, you consider some component of related to user experience or interface experience.
Yes.
You consider this component, and in that case, how you work about this?
Well, I work in that part, in the design part, and for example, I contact users and do some research to implement in our app. For example, in the mobile phone, the nav bar is at the bottom to easily reach all the functionalities of the app. Other implementation was in the navbar. You can click, like double tap and focus on the search bar on the top. So you can, you don't need to reach the top of the cell phone to be able to work with. So.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, congratulations. It's a
Thank
very
you.
good work. I would like to know how easy is it to grow if you want to add more information on other pages or on other supermarkets or this kind of thing. How do you think it's gonna work with more information? Is it easy? You need to recode it? It's parameters, or what about that?
Like scaling the app.
Yes.
Our app is scalable. We can add easily with, for example, we can add more supermarkets, more products easily. And we don't need to change any code. We can use admin panel, for example, easily add a product, so it can automatically update it with all the supermarkets. And we designed this as a supermarket, but we can expand this more. Like, for example, any any industry that has competition, that has web page, we can just basically add them, but our app for now, it's just focused on the supermarkets, but as I told you, it's scalable, we can expand for the more.
Thank you.
Hi, hello, Diego here. So in terms of when you for scaling, in terms of scaling, are you using web scraping to feed the application, right? From
Yes.
I
Yes.
think it's something like you are reading the information from the supermarket web page, right?
Yes.
What are you using for the catalog
Catalog, what do you mean?
to identify the products? Is
To find-
something that need to be made manually, or the application has some implementation to differ the different product?
You are-
How are you using? How are you identifying the products in the page?
In our database, each product has product URL, and basically when the script runs, it's basically making a request to that URL, and we are parsing the response, and we are taking the price data and other data. For example, for updating data, we are just taking the price, but we can add more URL, and we can update it easily. The only thing, each web page has different structure, and maybe we need to do a little tweak to take the price, because the structures, when structure change, the same script might be work.
It's something that you can manage in the admin panel, right? I suppose.
No, in admin panel, no. We should change we should add the new script, or maybe, as I told you, tweak a little bit, change the script.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. First of all, congratulations for the product.
Thank you.
I just want to know, how did you choose initially the technologies that you wanted to use for the application?
It was for the front end we use Vue.js, for example. We talk about the technologies we have, and I like it, the Vue.js. I work with it, and it was more easy for me to. I work with the version 1 of Vue.js. Now it's the version 3, so I have to learn a bit more. But for the backend, we use
Yes.
Django.
We started with Flask, actually, because in Wolverton, we made project with Flask, Python Flask. We started with Flask, but in some point we saw that we need to add more library to satisfy our requirements. And then we were searching another solution, and we found out that the Django has batteries included version. So when we started to use it, it's kind of solved all our problems. So it was from the Flask we passed to Django. We decided that because of that.
Thank you.
Yes, Javi, sí. Oh my God.
Congratulations. What were the main takeaways? What did you learn the most from doing the project? What did you take away also beyond from what you did at Foundations at Wolverton?
During the project, we learned how to organize our ideas, our main ideas, and llevarlas to something more concreto.
More specific.
Specific. We learned what technologies we use. For example, we talk about that, and I don't know how to say, but we
¿Sí?
¿En español?
¿Puedo responderte en español? Bueno, aprendimos a organizar nuestras ideas y llevarlas a algo más concreto, que es lo que fue el proyecto AhorrApp, y también a cómo coordinarnos y a qué herramientas y qué tecnologías usar para lo que vamos a hacer.
Lo que vamos a llevar.
Want to add? Okay.
La verdad que se siente raro estar de este lado, para ser honesto. Cuando desarrollaron el frontend, además de hacer un research con distintos usuarios y demás, ¿hubo alguna clase de prototipado, ya sea hecho a papel o mismo en una aplicación como Figma, Adobe XD?
Sí, primero se creó una maqueta en papel, luego la pasé al programa Figma para hacer para ver cómo iba a quedar, y después recién la implementamos en código con Tailwind CSS y otras librerías.
Bien, gracias.
Bien.
Bueno, muchas gracias a este primer grupo que presentó. Ahora vamos con Eventify, una aplicación diseñada para el manejo y visualización de eventos con una interfaz de usuario cómoda enfocada a dispositivos móviles. El equipo que presenta ahora es Martín Casamayú, Diego Merentiel, Felipe Pérez y Santiago Goiret. Un aplauso para ellos, por favor.
Well, hello and thanks for coming. Let me paint you a picture. End of the year, multiple meetings, maybe you have friends gatherings, college reunions, family gatherings, maybe from work you have multiple different parts of the job, development, human resources, a lot of parts. Maybe you have to create events for all these groups. For all these problems, we created Eventify. Eventify is an application inspired by our vision to connect these to connect in a comfortable way this connection between creator and user in a single simple app. Our team is formed by Felipe Pérez, Diego Merentiel, Martín Casamayó, and me, Santiago Goiret. Now let's get a bit more technical. Our app is consisting of a server in the AWS EC2 service with Nginx as a web server to reverse proxy our local host that with the JUnity service is deploying in the background our application. Also to the side, we host a second server, allowing us to have a blue-green strategy of deployment for reduced downtimes with update deployments.
Okay, so for the MVP, we decided to use Python along with Flask, which is a lightweight framework that allows us to quickly design and implement new features and endpoints for our project. Since the beginning, we realized that a lot of our important data was going to be dynamic, depending on who is going to use it, for example, who is going to create which event at which location. So for that, we decided to go with MongoDB, which is a non-relational database that basically uses JSON files, so it gives us all the dynamism that we wanted. Flask handles server-side rendering thanks to the Shinja engine, both for the static content for the Nginx, also for passing just pure raw data when the frontend needs it.
For frontend, we use HTML, CSS, and JS. We decided don't use any frameworks like Vue or React, and in the particular case of CSS, we decided don't use any library like Bootstrap or Tailwind because we want to develop our own interfaces and our own animation. We made a really simply view for the app, trying to bring the most the best experience for the user.
We decided to use vanilla JavaScript to display and request dynamic content from or to the API that we made. We also made interactive navigation bars and buttons with it. We used Jinja's engine to load information from the user session. And finally, we use a map that is provided by the Mapbox API to deliver information about a particular location, thus making the application feel more interactive and allowing it to display the information in a much more visual way.
Okay, so now we want to show how our app works. First, we need to log in into the page with a name and password. And we are get into the main page when we can see the event we are interested. If we go to the profile button, we can add a contact, adding just the name. And then we can create a group. It's just creating the bottom of the group with a photo and a name. If we enter into the group, we can add the previous created member. And now we are creating events with the data of the day, the group, or any members that we want to create. If we access to the event previously created, we are going to find a marker into the map when we can touch it and see all the information about the event previously created.
Well, we faced a lot of challenges along the way, but the ones that we think that are worth mentioning are first, not using JavaScript framework. At first, it wasn't an issue, but it rapidly became challenging. This really helped us, though, to settle a strong base so that learning any framework in the future will come easier.
Yeah, so the second main challenge was the changing goal of the app, because at first we wanted to make a very open app where everybody could create events everywhere, but thanks to outside feedback and the restriction of time for the MVP, we decided to focus it more on a business level kind of app that allows us to basically create the project and present it. Otherwise it was.
Well, now we invite you all to follow this QR code to our page where you can register, and upon login you'll see the event we just created in the demo. We're inviting you all to have coffee with us later. Thank you all.
Okay.
Any question? Hello.
First of all, congrats, because it was a great presentation. I wanted to know, you mentioned like another server you have for backup. Can you expand that a bit?
Yes, well, for starters, the first time we deployed in Amazon, we had a bit of a hard time, so we created a script enabling us to easily just ask for a new server from Amazon and start a new one with our application from scratch. And in that way, we thought, why don't have a second server to the side with a mirror copy of our application? So if in any case, we had a problem with the original one, we just needed to change the dominion from one IP to the other, and the application was still running in a second. And in the case we wanted to do an update for any feature, or whenever we move to the second version we're planning of the app, well, we could just easily deploy it in the second one, check that it's working and everything is fine, everything is okay, and well, then we just make the switch from one server to the other and always have it running that way.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, congratulations guys. I have a quick question actually. What about the expiration of the event? It happens like you put a deadline on the creation, or the person who created it is responsible for turning it down, you know?
So when you create an event, you actually put a start date and then you put an end date. So when the end date reaches, it's automatic. Yep.
I mean, the administrator of the event, of course, can delete the event if he wants, and the notification will be sent. But
side question: a part of the creation, are there any updates that you can do? What customizations you can make on the event?
On the application or the events?
On the actual event.
Well,
on the actual event right now, you can put a picture, add groups. For example, you add just a group and add every member as a basic guest. You can make an admin group, for example. You can add admins and delete admins, change the date, change the location, but you have to be an administrator of that location because every event happens, for example, here the coffee is at the Celebra location. And you can create the event because you are the admin of that location.
So. Oh, nice. Thank you.
In terms of databases, is there a limitation on the community version of MongoDB? And do you think your app can handle multiple user groups and everything else? Or do you need to switch at one point in time to another version of the database?
We are thinking, and we reach a challenge that we have many relationships right now that aren't supposed to be in Mongo. That's why we are starting to develop a hybrid database that basically puts all the user and the groups and the relationship in an PostgreSQL or MySQL, and the really dynamic data is called from Mongo, just that. But that is for the next version.
Yeah, to add on what Martin says, from the start we imagined that the events could have a lot of different data from one to the other because, well, if it's public and whatever client can do whatever they want with its events, it creates a lot of data. And for example, if in the same spot you have multiple events, what happens? For that was the choice of MongoDB because it's a really dynamic database where you can scale it really easily in that way. And well, as Martin said, the relations that were created otherwise weren't scalable in Mongo, so we're going to go with a hybrid database system.
Thank you.
Bueno, felicitaciones chicos, la verdad que impresionante. Mi pregunta tiene más que nada que ver con el desafío del equipo, ¿no? En el proyecto, poco tiempo, un montón de desafíos técnicos. ¿En qué momento sintieron que esto realmente se les ponía difícil y cómo hicieron para superarlo?
Bueno, creo que primero que nada, hablando un poco desde que también tocó ser un poco el project manager del equipo, y creo que logramos una organización de trabajo, intentamos replicar un poco cómo se trabaja hoy en día, capaz que en las empresas, en la industria, capaz que en empresas un poco más grandes que te dividen en proyectos, en grupos por proyectos justamente, y justo estábamos hablando hoy porque la semana que viene tenemos un evento ahí para Scrum, para certificarnos un poco, que intentamos utilizar una metodología parecida de trabajar un poco en sprints, irnos poniendo deadlines un poco más cortos, en las áreas en las que cada uno trabajaba y bueno, tener un día de repente o dos a la semana en la que nos reuníamos, poner un poco todo a la luz, que hicimos esto, logré hacer esto, cómo quedó esto, funciona, no funciona, podemos integrar las dos cosas juntas, las integramos y se rompen las cosas. Y bueno, de esa manera un poco pudimos ir apaciguando un poco todos los fuegos estos del terreno desconocido también, de tener que trabajar justamente al mismo tiempo con todas las partes, que capaz que nunca lo habíamos hecho, todos los roles a la vez, tener que cumplir todas las decisiones nosotros. Bueno, ahí la metodología de orden un poco creo que nos sirvió bastante.
Sí, yo para mí principalmente también eso de empezar, tenemos esta idea y tipo, bueno, ¿qué es lo que de verdad necesitamos para hacerla y llevarla a cabo? Tipo, ¿qué es lo que tenemos que investigar? ¿Qué es lo que vamos a poder hacer? ¿Qué es lo que no? Obviamente hay pila de cosas que empezamos a hacerlas y después nos dimos cuenta, tipo, claramente no da, hay que hacer otras cosas, pero eso, como dijo él, con las reuniones y todo el tiempo estar en el equipo conversando de lo que estamos haciendo, eso para mí fue lo que nos ayudó a guiarlo bastante bien, la verdad.
Sí, mucha división de tareas, sí. Mucha especificidad también en las tareas, como para que en realidad fluya todo.
Sí, básicamente salimos, en los momentos que se complicó un poco, salimos juntos. Bueno, ¿qué es lo que hay que hacer? No estoy pudiendo con esto, me ayudás, no sé qué. Y estudiándose entre todos el problema, logramos llegar a buen puerto, digamos, por decirlo de alguna forma.
Muchas gracias.
¿no?
Voy a salir con muchas preguntas de pronto. Por lo que estuve viendo, utilizaron solamente HTML y CSS puro, nativo. Y por lo que vi, fue desarrollada en base a Mobile First. ¿Hay planes de que se pueda expandir también a versiones de escritorio?
En realidad funciona bien en escritorio. Obviamente, o sea, está orientado a mobile por cómo es la estructura del diseño. Sí. O sea, los iconos simples abajo, las barritas simples, todas esas cosas que tienen aplicaciones de celular. Pero sí, la idea es que también se expanda y pueda hacerse en escritorio.
El tema también es que ahora, por ejemplo, nosotros personalmente creo que queremos seguir, o sea, nos interesó mucho la idea como que, además, queremos meterle tecnologías que estuvimos viendo que no podemos aplicar para el MVP, ya sea, por ejemplo, el clásico stack de MERN, ya que usamos Mongo, tipo usar más Node.js, cosas que se usan en la empresa y que no tuvimos posibilidad de tocar durante estábamos en el curso. Y básicamente sí. El sistema está, ya lo tenemos pensado, pero queremos migrarlo a nuevas tecnologías, tanto para seguir aprendiendo como para que sea más escalable.
Bien. Y la otra pregunta sería, ¿cuál fue el desafío más grande que se toparon en querer hacer la implementación de los datos en el frontend con JavaScript nativo?
Wow, estuvo difícil eso. ¿Me lo podrías decir de nuevo?
Lo más complicado de usar puro JavaScript.
Nativo, hermoso.
Bueno, JavaScript es un lenguaje muy lindo, pero tiene nativamente es muy complicado, por ejemplo, a la hora de armar componentes, mantener una estructura de pocas líneas de código, si se quiere decir así. Entonces, por ese lado, fue lo más complicado en realidad. Hacer un código estructurado, legible, e intentar hacer todo en componentes que nativamente es bastante difícil.
Otra cosa también un poco que ahí de la mano del millones y medio de líneas que escribió Diego de JavaScript, la página también, claramente al no tener componentes ni nada y ser tanto código, tanto nativo vanilla, se tornó un poco pesado, capaz de más, que claramente con la utilización de cualquier framework esa parte nos la hubiéramos ahorrado y sería muy sencillo. Y bueno, claramente la repetición de un montón de código, los famosos componentes que no existen, que había que hacerlos a mano y había que repetirlos bastante para lograr el dinamismo que quisimos lograr, también bastante dinámico, vale la redundancia. Así que nada, bueno.
Que todo eso igual, dentro de todo, sabíamos que iba a ser difícil desde el principio. O sea, pero elegimos igual para
aprendimos
meterle JavaScript.
Aprendimos pila.
Logramos aprender un poco lo que queríamos justamente.
Bien, muchas gracias. Felicidades.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Perfecto. Bueno, y de eventos nos vamos a CryptoGateway. CryptoGateway es una alternativa para estaciones de servicio y consumidores que ayuda a reducir las altas tarifas para los estacioneros y le da una opción más de pago a los clientes. El equipo que presenta ahora está compuesto por André Henderson, Raimundo Barrera, Diego Monfort y Oscar Vedat. Un aplauso para ellos, por favor.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. The name of our project is CryptoGateway, and now I'm going to introduce you our team. So, André Henderson is our DevOps, Diego Monfort is the front-end developer, Raimundo Barrera is our technical lead, and I am Oscar Vedat, the project manager.
All right, thank you. Let me tell you how we can capture part of the payments processing market in Uruguay. But first, a little story. A few months ago, in Maldonado, where Diego and I come from, we were getting some gas to come to Holberton, and clearly we hadn't been reading the news, because at the time of making the payment, the attendant says only cash. Fortunately, we had some and were able to get out of this situation. But this led us to think about what was causing it. After doing some research, we found out that credit cards are charging around 1% of each sale to gas stations, and that there are long settlement times involved. Having this in mind, we started working on a solution that involved cryptocurrencies, because as you may know, the one who sends a transaction is usually the one who pays for its cost. And this is how CryptoGateway came to be. Our solution makes it easy for customers to pay and sellers to collect using cryptocurrencies. To develop our product and test our concept, we chose a stablecoin called USDT or Tether because it's a widely respected stablecoin, and in particular we chose its Tron network version because it has lower associated transaction fees. In terms of benefits, we identified three for sellers. First, they stop assuming the cost of the transaction itself. Second, cash management is reduced. And third, settlement is instant. For buyers, we identified that as benefits that first, they have a new way to spend their blockchain assets. Second, they don't have to carry cash to pay for their gas. And third, they don't have to download yet another app, as they use whatever wallet they had been using.
Great. Now that we know what is CryptoGateway and why we decided to make it, let's see how it works. The front end was made with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The main objective of CryptoGateway is to be as both intuitive and simple for our users. So let's take a look to the demo. Well, the first thing we are going to see is the main menu when we have three options: go sell, modify info, and transactions. The first thing we have to do, if it's the first time we are using it, we need to set up our gas station by adding our pumps. We just need a name and associate each pump with a unique wallet. Great. Now that we have set up our gas station, we can go to sell. Here in Go to Sell, we are asked to select the pump we are using. In this case, we are using the pump number 5, which is the one we just created. Here we fill in the data with the information the consumer is buying. In this case, as we can see, is buying 2,000 pesos of super, which are around 23 liters. Finally, CryptoGateway is going to provide us the amount in dollars and the wallet the consumer needs to transfer. When the transfer is made, we click on OK and we wait a maximum of 2 minutes. As we can see, here we have successfully made our sale. And finally, in the transactions window, we have all our invoices. And as we have in the demo, there is the last one we just made.
Well, our application is running over 3 servers. The first one is an HA proxy server. The second one is the application server that is using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Nginx. The third one is the database. We are using in that Python, Django, and SQLite. When our customer makes a transaction, makes a request, our HA proxy server send it to the application server, and it gets the data from the SQL server and renders it and send it to the customer. And a special case is made when our customer asks for a transaction. In that case, we have 2 additional steps. The first one is that we go to an external API to ask for the exchange rate, make the calculations, and give to the customer the amount that he has to pay, And the other one is that we go to the API of Tron to ask for the success of the transaction. This is in the main picture, the way that we use to run our application.
All right, so during the process, we face different challenges, technicals and non-technicals. In the technical side, the integration of JavaScript third-party application to our flow was the main one. And in the non-technical side, moderate our expectations in the beginning of the project, and several times comes to us the question, can we handle this? So both technicals and non-technicals, we overcome them with our soft skills. I can highlight leadership, ownership, and of course communication. So on behalf of CryptoGateway, we want to thank you again for listening. We are happy and excited to receive your questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, first of all, congratulations for the presentation, and the product looks very nice.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask you guys, how do you manage to integrate with the different wallets? What was the challenge that you faced on that? If you could share with us, how was that done?
We don't integrate with other wallets. We show a QR code and the customer brings his own wallet. We specifically didn't want to develop another app for cryptocurrencies. You use whatever wallet you have in the Tron network, you scan the our QR code, which shows you the Tron network address of the USDT wallet, and that's it. There's no integration in that sense.
That was smart, you avoid the issue.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Hello.
Hello.
Again, congratulations for the job.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's more about the organization and the execution of the project. During the organization of the project, did you request or did you need some support external to the group? And in that case, how did you manage this?
We did not. We did not ask for support. We can do it, but we can manage the day basis task by ourselves. So you asked about the organization. We use Trello as a software to manage our the day by day task, and we have daily meetings. And of course, we ask for feedback for our peers or someone else or our families, whatever. But we didn't ask for support or technical, whatever.
Hi, hello. Why HTML, CSS are not, for example, Flutter or React Native or another framework for mobile? Because I think that it's an application that is going to be used for a device, right? For a mobile device. So why you're using HTML and
well,
what do you think?
Thanks. Basically, when we start research the technologies we're going to use, in my part, that was front end. I want to be the more unique or personal possible for this project, and also it was kind of desafiante, sorry, challenging, and I want that because we could use some like frameworks or libraries for the responsive design and that, but I saw it more like a challenge using something more personal than using other things. But I know it's kind of more easy. It's easy to use that. But basically it was.
Another question is the cryptocurrency you're going to the application use is Tether, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And for example, if you have bitcoins or I don't know,
it can be easily extended. We chose a stablecoin because the idea behind this is that you could pay with dollars, which could be assimilated to Tether or other stablecoins. We chose it just for that reason.
Okay.
Congratulations, guys, for the project.
Thank
Very
you.
nice. Just wondering if you thought
implementing this idea into another business model, maybe? Why pump stations, gas stations?
Well, we chose gas stations because of the issue I told about in the little story. We were trying to get gas, and fortunately we had some. But you can easily extend it to pretty much any other market where credit cards are taken. It should be rather easy. We also tried to do it to be easily adopted by sellers in particular. So our service then provides an API which can be easily integrated to sellers' current software.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias al equipo de CryptoGateway. Y ahora nos vamos a AR. El siguiente proyecto es Zone AR, integrado por Camila Abdala, Diego Acosta, Ignacio Castellán y Gabriela Domínguez. Perdón, Zone AR es una aplicación web que brinda una experiencia de realidad aumentada para descubrir puntos de interés, valiéndose de geolocalización y reconocimiento de imágenes. Guille, esta es una que te va a gustar. Un fuerte aplauso para el equipo de Zone AR, por favor.
Hello, we are the team behind Zone AR, Camila, Diego, Ignacio, Gabriela, and our passion is augmented reality. So we wanted to use it to add some spice to the way people explore a zone. For our application, we pick a zone, any zone, and we see it with three-dimensional virtual objects we can interact with from our mobiles, getting some extra information about the area we are in. Augmented reality, it used to be the stuff of science fiction. But now it's real life. It's like we are living the future we used to dream about. So we choose to do something with AR because we think it's challenging, fun, and we are really hyped with it.
We have two ways of deploying our objects, one with markers, where our application recognizes the image, and the other by geolocation, where we pass the latitude and longitude where we want the object appear. We are running our application on an Amazon Lightsail instance using Apache with a firewall and an SSL certificate, connected to a MySQL database. In our database, we have the object that you can see in augmented reality. At first, we start to investigate a documental database like MongoDB, but then we realized that a relational database is fixed better with our needs, and that's why we choose MySQL.
Okay, these are the technologies that we used to create our project. Some of them were known to us, but the others we have to learn how to work with them. For example, with the library ARJS and the framework A-Frame, we managed the augmented reality stuff. With Blender, we created the 3D objects that are spread around the zone. As you can see, we created the logo of our project in a 3D way. And we have a website which has a responsive design. It's made with HTML and CSS. There you will find a QR code which will take you to our application by tapping it or scanning it. And also there is a picture of us which will take you to another page with personal information of each one of us.
Our application works through different components that interact with each other. The first component is the scene, which is an area around the device where all different objects are deployed, like images, text, and 3D models. For geolocated objects, we simulate that a 3D model is located in a specific area. For that, we obtain the coordinates of the device through the DOM API, and when the latitude and longitude are close to a specific value, the object will be shown to the user. In the other case, it will stay hidden.
We are going with a live demo now, crossing my fingers because live demos can be iffy. So for this instance, we have two three-dimensional objects. One is geolocated, that's our logo. That should be floating around here somewhere. Anytime now.
No, wait,
okay. Live demos, as I was saying, iffy. And the other way, and the other object is going to be with a marker, that's image recognition technology. So, still waiting.
Bueno.
Come on. I need.
Pasa que si me conecto a Wi-Fi no...
Thousands of practice and it works and not now.
Sí, está.
Sí, sí, tiene que ser solo en otro móvil.
Sí, pero...
It's here. I assure you, it is here. Okay, two objects. One geolocated and one with a marker.
Ahora sí. Bien, ahora sí.
Our logo, go. Tell me it's here, please. Come on.
Me cuesta. Ahí.
There it is. And with a marker, Holberton, obviously, there. That's that better. And we can interact with the floating logo, and it will take us to our crew pages with some extra info about us, just because. It's been quite a journey. Some days more of a journey than others. Has it been challenging? Yes, nightmare level kind of a challenge. Fun? Roller coaster kind of fun. Do we want to keep learning? Maybe? No, sorry, hell yes.
First of all, congratulations. And what were the main difficulties encountered in working with augmented reality?
Oh, hell, I forgot to mention the challenges. Okay, thank you, Marcelo. The biggest challenge was choose our tools and stick with them, because the amount of technology available, it's so astounding that it was really difficult not getting distracted by all the shiny things along the way. That was a hell of a challenge. And then the other one was learning to use the technology. That was a biggest hell of a challenge. Augmented reality is a temperamental technology. It wasn't easy at all. Nacho, do you want to say something about it?
One of the most difficult thing about a frame is the low documentation about that. That's kind of confusing sometimes and doesn't work that how it doesn't work at all. So we have to experiment and use different tools and work with that.
Survive, adapt, overcome.
Buenas tardes, felicitaciones por el proyecto, un muy buen proyecto. Y tengo dos preguntas. Una, ¿en qué áreas, en qué lugares se podría implementar este proyecto y de qué forma? Y la segunda, ¿por qué eligieron trabajar con A-Frame y ARJS y no con Unity o Unreal Engine?
Bueno, podríamos implementarlo estamos pensando en museos, por ejemplo, donde podríamos hacer como una especie de guía, donde hayan diferentes exposiciones en los museos, entonces podríamos implementar en eso. o mismo hacer como un museo guiado en la realidad aumentada también. Entonces, y de la otra pregunta, no sé si Nacho.
Y utilizamos a Frame debido a la facilidad para entrar dentro de la tecnología. Nos brindaba como más fácil entrar a experimentar con la tecnología. En un futuro podríamos pensar dentro de la escalabilidad del proyecto pasar a una tecnología más compleja como puede ser C16, que nos brinda muchas más posibilidades, ya que nos permite trabajar mucho más a fondo y lograr cosas más poderosas.
Here. So you mentioned that you were using geolocation for indoor locations. Did you find any limitations there, and have you thought about better ways to geolocate an object within an indoor location?
Yeah, the problem is it's not geolocating the objects. The problem is the geolocation of the mobiles of the users. So there are technologies available to overcome that, but they are really expensive. So there was no way to use one for our MVP. It requires some hardware, not software, that helps the mobiles to be ubicados, located.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Siendo que son nuevas tecnologías y son difíciles de aplicar y se encontraron con varios desafíos, ¿cómo se organizaron frente a estos nuevos desafíos para llegar a tiempo en tan corto tiempo?
Con el tema de la organización, o sea, nos juntamos, digamos, horario de oficina, lunes a viernes, tardamos a las 9, y a qué hora nos íbamos dependía del día, no. A veces no nos íbamos, nos quedamos durmiendo, podíamos estar noches sin dormir. El tema de la organización, sí, o sea, no tuvimos problema en ese sentido, o sea, veníamos, trabajamos.
Trabajamos juntos, o sea, presencial, alrededor de la misma mesa y siempre, ¿en qué estás? ¿Te puedo ayudar? O yo estoy en esto, ¿tenés una idea? ¿Me ayudás? Y trabajamos bien. O sea, a veces no fue muy organizado, pero salió adelante.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias al equipo de Zone. Y ahora nos vamos al proyecto de especialización que les comentaba hoy. Una aclaración para hacer para el resto, para todo lo que es Foundations, es mandatorio como parte de la currícula, además de defender el proyecto ante el equipo técnico, presentarlo hoy ante ustedes. Para el caso de la especialización, no es mandatorio, porque en la gran mayoría de los casos, y es el caso de hoy, nuestros alumnos están trabajando también, con lo cual sabemos que hacer este proyecto y preparar la presentación para hoy es un tema más que tienen arriba de la mesa, con lo cual los invitamos igualmente a Ayrton, Coelho y a Franco Bueno a si querían exponer hoy ante ustedes su proyecto, y ellos dijeron sí, por supuesto, no voy a perder la oportunidad, con lo cual están viendo hoy el primer proyecto de especialización de backend, que es Movietrivia, que es un juego para demostrar tu conocimiento en películas, así que pasamos de AR a algo más divertido. Les pido por favor un fuerte aplauso para Ayrton y para Franco. Muchas gracias.
Hello everyone. As you may notice, Movietrivia is a multiple choice quiz game about movies. We decided to go for this project because, first of all, it is a game. That's a pretty valid point. Secondly, it seemed fun to build, which it was. And third and most important point is that everybody more or less enjoys a good movie, right? and hopefully quizzes too. So behind the team, we have Franco Bueno under the UX UI development, game logic, and deployment, and myself for the API, user session authentication, game logic as well, and deployment. Our technologies are Python for the backend with the Flask framework for the endpoints and page rendering, with SQL Alchemy for the database schemas. On the front end for the game logic, we have JavaScript with a little bit of jQuery, with Bootstrap and vanilla CSS for the designs. Finally, we have 3 containers that we use with Docker, one for the application, another one for the database, and a third one for the proxy server. All that is deployed on a Linode server. The architecture is quite simple. When the client wants to play, we first make sure that it is logged in, it has a session. Now, I want to point out here, we created around session authentication. That is actually not recommended. Normally, you will use an open source user authentication service, such as Flask Login, for example. But we learned how user session authentications work on the low level, sort of saying. So we wanted to implement that. And the other point is that we actually don't store any personal information for the user, so no one is in jeopardy of stealing data or anything like that. So after the user is authenticated and they can play, the play module on the front use fetch to request the questions on the database, then finally calculate the score and save that play match to the history.
So, thanks to the simple nature of the game, it was easy for us to perform a fast development without many inconvenience. We started defining the backend architecture and database tables schemas. We proceeded to define the endpoints to be used in the API for to be used in the API for accessing resources and templates for the game. Once the main part of the architecture has working solid, we proceeded to add styles and other things that bring value to the user experience. So, game logic. When the game starts, a timeout of 60 seconds is set. During that time, several questions will pop up on the screen one by one. Sorry, one by one. We proceed one by one. Voy de vuelta, perdón. Game logic. When the game starts, a timeout of 60 seconds is set. During that time, several questions will pop up on the screen one by one. Each question have 4 options. The user will have to choose one of the options. Sorry, I'm nervous. Okay. Each question has 4 options. From which the player will have to choose one. Mm-hmm. And an answer questions will appear where the user you can choose you choose one, or if 50 seconds has passed without choosing. So
basically this is a 15-second timeout for every question, and the new question will appear after those 15 seconds, no score, or if you answer, next question. Now, here's a simple demonstration of the rules page for new players. Home page, you can select to play a game, check the rules, check the scoreboard or log out. The simplest login form. As I said, it is very basic, no many requirements. And the screen for the game. So you read the question, you have the time bar for the 15 seconds, and then the options. Once you select the option, next question. Correct. Here is the scoreboard. Franco. And well, we wanted to invite someone. Don't panic. We wanted to invite someone to play, but we had a last-minute technical issue on the server for the Docker database container, so that couldn't happen. We have a display outside after all the presentations are finished, so you can try out and play some if you want. We would really like you to play. All right? So for next steps, we have two important things. The first one, everyone that we showed the game to asked us to see how they did, basically. Right now, we don't have that. We just calculate the score and send the score out to the player. The idea was to display some sort of table with each question and the player responses and see if they did right or wrong on each response. That will be something to implement. And the other big part of implementation will be an online. Basically, the game is single player. You can compete with other players by looking at the scoreboard and trying to get to the top. But the actual game is single player. The idea was to create some sort of room from where you can invite other friends and all of them will play the same match. It will be much fun. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, guys, for the presentation and also for, we know that you are finishing the specialization and you're there to present today, so that it's also a plus for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So my first question is, who is Gervasio? That only plays one and...
We don't know. We don't know.
You don't know?
Not at all. It's a mystery.
Okay, the second question and more technical maybe.
Yeah.
You were talking about Docker and
yes.
having, you know, like 3 separate instances.
Yes.
And you have explained one challenge that you face with that, but what would be the benefit that you have, that you put into consideration to decide to go to Docker?
Well, less steps for the deploying, that's for sure. And the good thing about Docker is that you can create as many containers as you like and join them under the same network. We communicate. That was the main idea. Also with the less steps for deploying, yeah. But unfortunately, the database Docker was failing to us. We couldn't display a demo.
It's better having that in Docker than no having Docker. So it's going to be easier to repair later, so don't worry.
I believe so, hopefully.
Hola, soy Shaheen, Cohort 16. Maybe I missed, but where was the logic located in the front end? I think you told me in JavaScript or in the server side. Like, for example, when the user clicks and chooses an option. No?
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Which?
I'm saying when user clicks an option, and where it's calculated or checked, the logic part, in the server side or in the front-end JavaScript side?
Well, you want to respond? Okay. So the entire game logic is on the front on JavaScript. You know, when the HTML page renders, all the logic goes there with the JavaScript file. All the resources, like the questions, the score calculation, are on the back. The idea behind this was that, you know, people like you could take a peek at the front and view the details behind the game and probably sneak out all the answers. Well, we are not showing you the answers.
That was my intention, actually.
That was my intention.
Can inspect the JavaScript.
Yeah, you won't find anything. What we do is store your answers as a player on a list, and then we should send the entire list to the backend.
Muchas gracias. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hello. You briefly mentioned something about not using Flash logging, for example, as a library for authentication.
Yes.
Can you explain briefly how you manage sessions or authentication?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Basically, when you send a request to the server, we check if there is a cookie. The first time you log in, we give you a cookie with a session ID, right? So after that, the browser is responsible for everything else, basically. Your browser on the client side will send that cookie with the session ID to us, and will recognize that it's you because of the session.
Thanks.
Hola. Felicitaciones por el logro del proyecto y el buen trabajo.
Gracias.
En caso de un crecimiento de usuarios, por ejemplo, ¿tienen previsto la escalabilidad del proyecto? ¿Cómo sería?
Sí, parte de eso se encarga Unicorn, que es el WSGI para la aplicación de Flask. Vos podés ponerle la cantidad de workers, es como si fuera un threading. Cuando se completa, si hay uno ocupado, simplemente pasa al siguiente. Eso es bastante escalable. En cuanto a request, sería lo que tu pregunta.
Y por ejemplo, para los contenedores, ¿también se manejan algún orquestador o tienen previsto que se pueda utilizar?
Por el momento pensamos que para el peso del juego en sí, no va a haber mucho inconveniente en cuanto a request y a procesamiento. En todo caso, lo que se haría sería duplicar la cantidad de contenedores y probablemente balancear las requests entre ellos.
Excelente, muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Hola. No, mi pregunta era ¿por qué usaron por qué no usaron el API de Flask para autenticación? ¿Por qué lo hicieron a mano con una cookie?
Bien. Una de las razones es porque normalmente en cualquier autenticación te pide email. No queríamos molestar mucho, porque el juego es bastante simple, no queríamos molestar con un email, verificación de email y todo eso. Lo segundo, aprovechando que no hay datos personales, quisimos implementar lo que aprendimos en la especialización. Una de las tantas cosas que fue esto de User Authentication, que la verdad fue muy interesante y quisimos crear nuestro propio.
Es un poco a mano, digamos, para...
Es bastante a mano para eso mismo, sí.
Bueno, felicitaciones.
Gracias.
Somos en español. Mi pregunta era más bien, ¿cómo hicieron para balancear los roles en el proyecto, digamos? ¿Tuvieron que hacer de todo? ¿Se dividieron? ¿Cómo lo hicieron?
Sí.
¿Contesto yo?
Sí, dale.
Bueno, primero que nada, dividimos las tareas. La principal parte que dividimos fue crear la arquitectura del backend. Después empezamos por las tablas de MySQL. Él empezó un poco con las tablas, yo empecé un poco con el backend. Después nos dividimos, yo me fui más por el frontend, él siguió con el backend, después unimos las cosas y nada. Y nos íbamos guiando más o menos por Trello nuestras tareas y de cada tanto nos reuníamos, básicamente.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, chicos. Bueno, ¿cómo venimos hasta ahora? Para los que se suman por primera vez a una Demo Day, estamos cumpliendo por lo menos las expectativas de lo que se imaginaban que iban a ver. Bueno, me alegro mucho desde ese lado. Vamos a seguir, vieron cuán diversos han sido los proyectos presentados hasta ahora, ¿no? Parte también de lo lindo de estas instancias. Vamos ahora con nuestro sexto grupo, Stock IT. Stock IT es una aplicación web para manejar un inventario de productos considerable, facilitando así la gestión de sus productos de una manera rápida e intuitiva. Stock IT agiliza la categorización y ordenamiento de los elementos y permite mostrar la información a través de gráficas y métricas. Este proyecto lo conforman Salvador Díaz, Santiago Negreira, Joaquín Victoria y Mateo Victorica. Un fuerte aplauso para ellos, por favor.
Hello, thank you for coming to the presentation. My name is Salvador Díaz, and our team consists of 4 people. Joaquín Victoria as the data analyst developer, myself as the infrastructure developer, Mateo Victorica as the front-end developer, and Santiago Negreira as the back-end developer. Our team developed StockIt, a web application that aims to make inventory management a lot easier. We accomplish this by giving users the ability to create and manage their own online inventory of products, such as CSV file manipulation, QR and barcode scanning and generation, and auto-generated charts. Now, a quick overview of the technologies. For the backend, we developed the application in Python with the Flask framework, sending queries to a MySQL database with the addition of the object relational mapper SQL Alchemy. For the front end, we use the classic HTML, CSS, JavaScript, along with Bootstrap for a mobile responsive interface. Finally, we deploy the application using AWS cloud servers with Nginx as a web server and GUnicorn for the communication between the web server and the application.
We think it's best to visualize the app features practically, so we're going to show our web app hosted on TechWall.tech. We believe that there are 5 main parts on the management of stock: products, branches, movements, inventory, and finances. Each movement consists of a product moving in or out of a branch, and the result of all the movements determines your inventory. Also, based on the exit movements, we define the finances, providing reliable information to the user about their businesses.
Adding a stock to your inventory is easy. You just need to create a product, for example, Xiaomi, and a branch, in this case, Carrasco. Then you're ready to add a movement, selecting price, quantity, and the currency with which you want a product to enter or leave your inventory. Some useful tools are the scanning of QR codes and barcodes to add movements of specific products. You can also add products, branches, and movements via CSV files. Another useful tools are the data visualization via Google Charts that allows you to see the information in an easy way. And finally, the finance section, where you can see your profits or losses with each product.
For the deployment, we decided to choose Amazon's AWS EC2 instance. We saw that it offers a lot of tools for developers, as well as it's one of the most used in the market as of right now. Once we had our AWS server up and running, we cloned our Flask application into it, and we installed all the dependencies for the app to function properly. Later, we configured GUnicorn as our WSGI server to forward requests from our Nginx to our Python backend. Finally, we installed an SSL certificate provided by Cerbot to improve overall security. Some of the challenges we faced were halfway through our development process. We found that our database model was not the most ideal for our initial idea of the project. So we had to make a database model from the ground up, which actually took a lot of time and resource investment, both in the front end and in the back end. Thankfully, though, this instance taught us to adapt to difficult situations efficiently and quickly. Another challenge we had was choosing the right technologies for each part of the task. As you may know, there are a vast amount of different frameworks and technologies. So we had to, during the research project of the, during the research part of the project, we had to invest a large amount of time reading about these different frameworks and technologies to see both the positives and the negatives. We then, given our time frame of 4 weeks and our current knowledge, we could choose the optimal of these to implement in our project.
Here you have a LinkedIn with each one of a QR code with each one of our LinkedIns, and also you can go to our website hosted on techual.tech. Thank you for listening, and we're ready for any question you may have.
Congratulations. If a user enters a product which name is drop onto the drop table, like, do you have any prevention for the SQL injection or a kind of database injection? Thank you.
For SQL injections, basically by using SQL Alchemy, as Alba stated earlier, SQL Alchemy has built-in features that protect you against attacks of the type SQL injection. For other types of attacks, if you wonder, we also took into account DDoS attacks by using a Flask library called Flask Limiter, which basically limits the requests a user can make to our server. And in our case, we limited to 20 requests per minute. And if that is exceeded, it blocks the user from accessing the page.
Guys, congratulations. It's a very nice project. Just have a question. You mentioned that you use plain JavaScript. Just wanted to know which library you use for the charts, for example, and all that rendering that you do in the page.
Yeah. For the Google Charts?
Yep.
Yeah, we use the Google API, Google Chart API, along with vanilla JavaScript to integrate it well. Yeah, that was basically the...
And for the tables and all the other stuff?
For the tables, we used Bootstrap, Bootstrap containers mostly. Mm-hmm. Actually, if you use Bootstrap and tables anytime, you may notice that they don't go well together, mm-hmm. because if you have a large enough number of columns in a table, mm-hmm. it will surpass that container. So that was a real nightmare, but we found a way to manage everything.
You will manage that. Yeah.
Yes. Also, Bootstrap making the tables mobile responsive was a big challenge. It's not easy to position them in an easy to read way, so we had to figure out a way that was clear for the user.
Thank you.
Bueno, yo voy a preguntar en español. Primero que nada, felicidades porque el producto se ve muy bien. Yo la única pregunta que tenía era, este sistema yo lo veo con bastantes implementaciones en distintos otros productos. Entonces, ¿ustedes desarrollaron alguna manera de que su producto se pueda implementar en otras situaciones? O sea, desarrollando una API que sea usable fuera de lo que es el front.
No sé si te repetir la pregunta.
La API que ustedes crearon,
sí.
¿es usable para todos fuera de lo que es la página de StockIt?
Te metes, creas un usuario y...
¿Qué?
O sea, creas un usuario y tenés acceso, o sea, no es como que...
No hay una API.
O sea, la API que hay es para crear el contenido dinámico que se necesita dentro de la página, pero en sí, si querés controlar tu inventario, usa nuestra app y lo vas a poder hacer.
Lo puedes hacer.
Gracias. Hola, para la parte de lectura de QR, ¿qué utilizaron? O el QR o el código barra, en realidad.
Usamos una API que es de JavaScript, que se encarga automáticamente de leer los códigos QR y cualquier tipo de barcode, y mediante la lectura, cuando reconocíamos que el código QR o el barcode tenía uno de los ID de los productos, ahí levantamos la información, y si no, no se levanta nada. Pero en principio se puede usar para varias operaciones como hacer movimientos, obtener información sobre las finanzas de un producto y otras cosas más. Pero en sí usamos una API para eso.
Gracias.
¿Qué tal, gente? De vuelta, felicitaciones también. Una consulta. No sé si manejaron algo en particular o les dio el tiempo con el tema de la concurrencia para el manejo del stock y las diferentes sucursales. ¿Pudieron ver alguna cosa de eso? El tema de la concurrencia para el manejo del stock.
O sea, ¿a qué te referís? O sea,
más de una sucursal pidiendo
sí,
el
sí,
mismo inventario, digamos.
Claro, el inventario en sí se separa por sucursales. Entonces, cuando vos vas a hacer un movimiento de esa mercadería, ya está, o sea, como calculado dentro de esa sucursal. Entonces, si vos querés hacer un movimiento de salida de esa mercadería y en tu sucursal no tenés, no te va a permitir.
Claro, vos tenés los productos, luego tenés las sucursales y luego recién ahí puedes hacer un movimiento con un producto en cierta sucursal, que luego eso va a estar reflejado en tu inventario y eso lo puedes filtrar por sucursal o también verlo en todas las sucursales que tengas al mismo tiempo.
Perfecto.
Felicitaciones, la verdad que muy buena. La pregunta lo hago más de vuelta a la parte organizacional del equipo. Ustedes mencionaron que uno de los challenges más difíciles que tuvieron fue elegir la arquitectura correcta, los productos correctos, y que eso les llevó mucho tiempo leer y analizar. No sé si lo hicieron o no, pero pregunto, ¿no pensaron en consultar algún referente, algún externo al proyecto para acelerarlos o facilitarles esa decisión?
Bueno, siempre nosotros, por la metodología Holberton, tratamos de primero nosotros buscar varios recursos para las tecnologías que vamos a usar y luego elegir la que nos parece mejor, consultarla con el equipo. Sí, un par de veces como referente tuvimos a Javier, que está ahí, que nos ayudó un par de veces con alguna duda puntual, pero nuestra idea siempre fue googlear mucho, buscar mucho y luego ver qué era lo que funcionaba mejor y que todo el equipo estuviera de acuerdo con las tecnologías en cuestión y básicamente eso.
Tenemos pensado en un futuro incluso, o sea, llegar a consultar justamente con algún tipo de empresa que maneje stock para poder mejorar ese sistema, que creemos que mejoraría bastante la aplicación para el mundo real, porque ahora es como algo como que nosotros creemos cómo funciona, pero no sabemos realmente si es tan sencillo.
Okay, congratulations, guys. Very, very good work. I need to practice my English, and maybe you can tell me this question. In this moment, the security or cybersecurity is very important, and you manage a lot of information. And what security measure did you use in the app?
Okay.
For these risks?
So basically, as I talked a bit about it in the deployment stage, we use an SSL certificate to encrypt the connection between the user and the server. This is one of the most standard security assets that every web uses nowadays. And as I answered in a previous question, we have protections against two types of attacks, of cyber attacks, that are DDoS and SQL injection.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, chicos.
Che, acuérdense de apagarlo. Apáguenlo. Apagaron todo.
Y ahora nos vamos del lado de la gestión de stock al mundo del reciclaje. El siguiente proyecto, Verde, es de Erika Altés, Marco Sósaro y Lucila Mosiulski. Verde es una aplicación móvil para fomentar y educar al usuario en la práctica correcta del reciclaje mediante un sistema de código QR y una propuesta entretenida con el fin de comprometer al público con el medio ambiente. Un aplauso para el equipo de Verde, por favor.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. So I'm gonna start asking your question. Have you ever been in front of a recycling bin, not knowing what goes in there? Can you raise your hand maybe? Okay. A little confused if your item goes in an organic container or in a cardboard one? Well, we have. That's why we created this app. We are Verde. Because we wanted to raise awareness and have some fun while doing this. We achieve this by means of a QR scanner on each container so that the user can differentiate waste by material. That way they will know if what they are about to throw away goes in that specific container and if it is in the correct state. All in all, we'll behave on the environment and by taking care of the recycles and the users. Behind this project are Erika Altés in backend and database, Marco Sosaro in frontend, and myself as project manager and UX UI. In order to develop our app, we use Flutter, a framework written in Dart language. This allows us to create an application natively performant on all devices. As a real-time database, we use Firebase, supported by Firestore Cloud, a non-SQL data model that allows you to store, synchronize, and easily console your data from all devices on a global scale. Also offering us cross-platform solutions given by Google Enterprise.
Well, now we're going to talk about these technologies and why we choose them. First, we have Flutter. Flutter is an open source development kit. Using this technology, you can use pre-built widgets, which is very helpful. You can build them from scratch if you want to. It helps you to create cross-platform mobile applications. And okay. And it has a mobile SDK that provides responsive styling without using a JavaScript bridge and achieves levels of performance that rivals its cousin and direct competition React Native. Next, we have Dart, the language. Dart was designed to be used both in one-person projects as in more developer or complex projects. It is an object-oriented language with a CSI syntax, which was familiar to us. It has a very good documentation and tutorials, which helped us a lot while we were learning to use it. And last but not least, we have Firebase. Firebase is a platform whose main function is to facilitate the creation of high-quality mobile application despite of the rapid development. It has a great variety of tools. Using these tools, each developer can combine them and adapt the platform to their own needs. It provided us with authentication, hosting, and a database all in the same place, and we can manage all these things from a friendly and simple console. Putting together these three elements, we created a powerful but simple development environment. That's it. That's why we choose them.
Now, let's see how the application works. Once user registration, the database generates a table for this user. Once logged in, the application consists of three parts: a map with the location of a recycling bin, a section where the user can read our different news or topics about recycling, and in main function, the QR code read for the different type of material we scan recycling. Okay, now, each container that is on a QR code depending the accepted material. If the user scans the QR code on a container that doesn't match selected material, the application warns you that it's not the correct container. Otherwise, the application adds a point to your profile point counter. After a certain number of points, the plant in the user profile will start to grow, passing through different states until become a tree. Okay, our biggest challenge was learn a new technology in a short amount of time for developing a functional application. We already started to work on new projects and learn new technology along the way. Thank you for listening.
Hi, congratulations. I wanted to ask you about why did you choose Flutter instead of others like React Native, maybe that it's basically JavaScript that it's on your basis. Just for learning, or did you run a process for deciding that?
We made an investigation, and we believed that it's gonna be the best tool by its simplicity. And a part of that, we wanted to try new things. We wanted to try our capacity to learn new things along the way. So that's basically why we chose Flutter.
If I may add, another reason that, as Eric said, in the research we saw that it was similar with C, sorry. That was the first language that we learned on the curriculum. And we are also really used of taking risk through all foundations. So we say, okay, we can give this a shot. And also, we really like the user experience that Flutter gives the users. So that was also an important achievement to get throughout this project, to have a pretty application. We wanted to do this. And well, that's another reason for you choosing Flutter.
Okay, thank you.
Buenas tardes, felicitaciones por el proyecto.
Gracias.
Mi pregunta viene un poco por otro lado, si tienen pensado continuarlo ¿Y qué posibilidades de escalabilidad tienen?
Sí, se había pensado en un principio en continuarlo, ya que es un tema muy bueno, ¿no? Y que creo que es importante que la gente lo pueda aprender de alguna manera. Sí, es escalable, justamente por el motivo que tiene la aplicación, y además las tecnologías que utilizamos nos acompañan gradualmente. A medida que vayamos consiguiendo usuarios o se vaya desparramando la aplicación, podemos llegar automáticamente a ir creciendo toda la infraestructura, ya que Google nos permite eso.
Para agregar un poquito, Firebase provee muchos servicios que te dan hasta una cierta cantidad de tráfico de manera gratuita. A partir de esa cantidad de tráfico se empiezan a cobrar diferentes planes, pero o sea, teniendo un plan de negocio que pueda sustentar ese crecimiento, o sea, es infinitamente escalable por ese lado, por la cuestión de cantidad de usuarios y consultas y todo eso.
Bien, gracias.
Gracias.
A ti. No more question? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Y ahora sí nos vamos al octavo y último proyecto de la tarde, HandSafety. El proyecto es desarrollado por Alina de los Santos, Guzmán Caraballo y Juan Valentín Jiménez. Cuento un poquito más de qué se trata HandSafetyVR. Es un simulador de química de realidad virtual que enseña de forma segura a sus técnicos el manejo de productos peligrosos. Con esto, las personas podrán practicar habilidades críticas una y otra vez, y una vez que estén listos, pasar al mundo real de una forma con menos riesgos. Veo algunas caras de sorpresa. Les comenté que esta tarde íbamos a tener proyectos muy variopintos y que íbamos a estar saltando de una propuesta a otra, así que les pido un fuerte aplauso para el último grupo de la tarde.
Have you heard the saying, practice makes perfect? Probably yes. It goes without saying that making mistakes is key to mastering a new skill. But what happens when you work in an intrinsically dangerous environment, such as a chemical manufacturing plant or a laboratory setting, and making those mistakes is just not viable? What if, on top of that, those mistakes can seriously bring down your company's revenue by equipment damage caused by an inexperienced user or by product wastage? Inspired by these questions, as well as by a series of honestly tragic accidents we all shared, is that HandSafetyVR came into being.
Now, meet our team. Santos and myself. Juan took on the role of QA as well as testing the gameplay from a technical standpoint. Then Alina is our game developer. She was in charge of constructing the game base as well as leading the line in the developing phase. And lastly, I was in charge of monitoring progress as the project manager, and then focusing on the more creative aspects as the game designer. We picked our roles based on our motivations, always making sure that we were aligned with each other's progress.
Well, now let me introduce you to HandSafetyVR. As you can see, there are two main modes. The first one is a practice mode, where the user will be able to practice doing random generated formulas with no time restrictions. And then on the other side, there is a test mode, where the user will have the opportunity to test himself doing one single formula, and will have 1 minute to do this. Also, watch out, because if you fail to complete it either on time or doing in a good way, this will lead you to failing scenarios, like, for example, explosions.
Okay, so now let's get more technical. Our program is powered by Unreal Engine. We picked Unreal Engine because of their visual scripting system that
we considered that it would allow us to work and test faster, as it finally did. And other advantages about using Unreal Engine are the large quantity of documentation available, the asset store, and Unreal's community support, which we owe a big thanks to. So this was a big challenge for us, but we decided to take on it using the skills that we acquired during Holberton, especially the ability to learn new things.
During the initial stages of research and development, we wanted to validate the need for the application we had in mind. To do that, we conducted what we like to call market research, by having conversations with people we knew in the chemical industry, but also by reading peer-reviewed articles from scientific journals. And we discovered some very concerning facts about laboratory accidents and its cost. One estimation shows that only in the US, there is at least one serious laboratory accident every 3 days, and this is considered a very conservative estimation. Also, in a survey conducted among 2,400 laboratory technicians, they declare that at least 40% have witnessed a serious injury at a chemical laboratory, which require medical assistance. And this is not cheap. The U.S. National Safety Council has determined that each one of these injuries costs $32,000 only in medical bills. This doesn't take into account reputation loss by the institution, doesn't take into account time and expenses required to fix equipment, as well as time the research is set back, as well as litigation costs that the organization might incur if the employee sues. But also, let's look at the bright side. Different papers show that VR training can improve performance between 17 to 49%, and there's where we saw an opportunity.
Well, now you might be wondering why should you use HandSafetyVR? Well, there are obviously a lot of reasons, but the main ones are, first of all, retention. We achieved this by using gamification in order to create a more memorable experience. Then safety, as obviously VR allows you to learn in a very safe way without any risk. And then environmental friendliness, as companies won't have to waste too much resources into the learning process.
You may be wondering how we keep track or whether the user is successful or not. Our code works by spawning physics balls at the beaker mouth. These are the same physics balls that come with the VR template gun, but instead of just pushing them forward, we'll let them drop to gravity. Each one of these balls has two main properties: a function that checks the properties of the object it collides against, and a float variable containing the result of a dot product calculation. More on this later. Each time one of these balls collides with an object successfully identified as the beaker, it will go ahead and check the dot product of how tilted the beaker is relative to the floor. This results in a -1 to 1 float range that we will use. Once our mixing container, which has an array of 5 floats, each indexed to a color. The flow rate, the dot product result will determine the intensity of the pour, as well as give value to the ball. Our session manager also has an array of 5 floats, but with the goal levels the user has to arrive at. Each time one of these physics balls comes into contact with a mixing container, it goes ahead and checks the values in the array of the mixing container versus its own, and will make decisions depending on whether these values are more than, less than, or equal to. Once a mass threshold is reached, our session manager will use a simple switch statement to determine whether a failure or success scenario will be triggered.
So while trying to put our ideas into practice, we faced several challenges. Most of them were unique to developing in a VR program, which are related to physical limitations based on our bodies and the technology. The first one of them is motion sickness. So there are limits about how much we can test certain things without feeling it. So this was overcome by pacing our QA cycles. Then we learned a couple lessons about not being so overambitious. especially with hand tracking. So there were a couple of challenges that were delaying our progress. So we decided to back down and opt for the use of controllers to develop our program. And lastly, misunderstanding perception. So you may think it could be easy to translate what your eyes perceive to the VR program. And we did too, but it's actually much more difficult than it sounds. And it took a lot of twitching and remaking to get to the final program. So thank you for listening. And now, well, you can try the program later outside, but now we look forward to answering your questions.
Me encanta el proyecto y mi pregunta era para preguntarles ¿por qué decidieron implementar VR dentro del ambiente del laboratorio?
Ok, nuestra primera idea fue primero usar realidad virtual porque nos pareció algo original para hacer de nuestro punto de vista y aparte nos daba mucha curiosidad empezar a aprender esa tecnología. Y una vez habiendo tenido la elección de realidad virtual, nos gustó volcarlo a algo que pueda tener un futuro para ser útil para alguna empresa o algo. Entonces nos gustó el tema del laboratorio porque es algo en el que, como dijo Alina, hay un mercado ahí, se puede aplicar y puede ser útil para una empresa desarrollar o tener un programa que sea desarrollado con ese fin.
Buenas tardes, felicitaciones por el proyecto, muy buen proyecto.
Gracias.
Tengo dos preguntas para hacerles. Una, ¿qué los llevó a decidirse a usar Unreal Engine y no Unity o irse por el lado de PixArt? Y la segunda, ¿cómo fue el manejo de fluidos? ¿Cómo hicieron por el comportamiento de fluidos y físicas?
Bien, elegimos Unreal Engine por, como dijo Guzmán, por el community support, por la documentación que hay, pero también porque tiene muchas, digamos, funciones built-in. Si hubiéramos usado Unity, por ejemplo, hubiéramos tenido que ir, googlear, no sé, por ejemplo, usamos producto escalar, googlear producto escalar en Unity, mientras que en Unreal ya está built-in. También nos pareció súper intuitivo, si bien tuvo una curva de aprendizaje un poco, ¿cómo se dice? Steep, intensa, aprender a usar los blueprints, el sistema que pensamos que iba a ser más fácil y nos costó al principio sobre todo, pero nos dio también ese dinamismo de que bastante rápido teníamos ya un prototipo, que después fuimos, pero nos da un poco de vergüenza verlo, que lo fuimos tweakeando y nos dio como esa rapidez. Si bien la curva de aprendizaje fue un poco difícil al principio, nos dio como esa facilidad. Y el tema de mecánica de fluidos es una buena pregunta porque en realidad no son fluidos, es un efecto visual que hicimos. Le revertimos la gravedad para que cayeran las pelotitas esas que son como unas balitas de la pistola que vienen en el template, para que cayeran y le dimos un efecto visual para que parecieran fluidos, pero en realidad no son fluidos, es un efecto. Gracias.
Yo una pregunta, la aplicación está todo autocontenido, ¿no? ¿Verdad? O sea, usted trabaja en la aplicación, no tiene, o sea, es una y eso creo que sí la respuesta. Y otra pregunta es los eventos, porque no sé si tiene un evento, por ejemplo, si hay alguna combinación de fluidos que genera alguna especie de reacción, esa reacción se dispara.
Sí, eso los invitamos a ver afuera porque tiene su... Sí, tiene, claro, o sea, depende...
Tipo de reacciones.
Claro, o sea,
dependiendo de la combinación.
Claro, el Session Manager lo que va a chequear es eso, los valores comparados con lo que hay en el mixing, el contenedor que mezclamos, y dependiendo de la comparación de valores va a ser un trigger, o tenemos una cantidad de eventos de falla y una cantidad de eventos de éxito.
Bueno, también agregando lo que dijo Alina, o sea, en esta versión todavía no contemplamos, o sea, la hicimos como genérica, digamos, no con químicos en concreto, para poder también llevarla a otros mercados o integrarla con lo que sea.
Y otra pregunta es, ¿cómo funciona? ¿Hay una especie de marketplace donde la aplicación se puede poner y ahí se descarga? ¿O cómo es el tema con Oculus para toda la parte de deploy, digamos?
Por ahora tenemos solo la APK y bueno, tuvimos que instalarla con el Oculus de acá. En realidad todavía no está subido a ningún market ni nada.
Sí, pero también eso lleva como todo un proceso de que te lo validen y que pueda estar. Tiene esos requerimientos y eso.
Está muy bien, gracias.
Quizás yo quería hacer una pregunta.
Hola, muy buen producto.
Gracias.
Mi pregunta es, ¿puede ser escalable pensando, por ejemplo, en la virtualidad y el poder aplicarlo a nivel universitario, simulando un laboratorio virtual, por ejemplo?
Sí, yo creo que tiene potencial de customización. Esto más o menos lo hicimos como para mostrar más o menos la tecnología que está, y yo creo que es un gran paso hacia algo que después podemos llevar adelante a otro lugar. Si tenemos un cliente que nos pide que recreemos cierto experimento o algo, podríamos llevarlo a ese punto.
Sí, también por eso hicimos como químicos genéricos. Lo único que hicimos fue cambiarle un poquito la gravedad a cada químico para que cuando lo pones no sea la misma velocidad, digamos, para darle un poquito ahí el desafío. Pero lo hicimos genérico para que se pudiera adaptar después a cierto requerimiento de un cliente, cierto experimento, cierta composición, formulación, lo que sea.
Y también agregando a eso, yo creo que tiene mucho potencial porque hace que todo el aprendizaje sea hasta divertido y no como, o sea, no es tipo un libro de química, por ejemplo, sino que también, por ejemplo, para niños eso puede ser muy útil.
Muchas gracias.
Bien, una pregunta hacia ustedes y también quizás genérica a todos los equipos que presentaron. ¿Cuánto tiempo tuvieron para realizar el proyecto?
De codificación 2 semanas, de planeamiento 3 semanas en total.
No más preguntas y felicitaciones, la verdad.
Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias a todos los equipos. Para cerrar un poco la actividad de hoy, quiero darle la bienvenida y pedirle a Carlos Acle, presidente de la CUTI, si puede subir al escenario y compartir con nosotros unas palabras.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Soy bastante nuevo en este rol y en esto de hablar así en público. Arranqué ayer las funciones de CUTI y este es mi primer evento posterior a eso, así que después de ver las presentaciones que vi y el nivel de los oradores, la verdad que felicitaciones. Dejaron la vara alta para este momento. Lo primero que quería comentar es felicitaciones por todo lo que vi. No pude ver todos porque tenía otros compromisos antes, pero sin duda los tres que pude ver tienen componentes claves. Uno es y me parece como fundamental esto que hacen, porque solucionan problemas reales o apuntan a una problemática existente en algún lado, y me parece que la tecnología y lo que hagamos desde el Uruguay hacia el mundo es clave que solucione problemas reales. Lo segundo son las presentaciones en inglés. Realmente un nivel de inglés muy bueno, un esfuerzo adicional además de las 3 semanas para hacer todo esto, preparar, exponer en inglés, contestar preguntas en inglés, sin duda requiere un trabajo adicional y salir de la zona de confort, que es en esto que hacemos, es donde nos ponen todos los días, ¿no? ¿Y por qué refuerzo este tema? Es porque Estados Unidos hoy es nuestro principal mercado de exportaciones de software. Exportamos en el entorno de 650 millones en el entorno de 950 millones de dólares por año, y Estados Unidos e Inglaterra representan más del 85% de esas exportaciones. Eso significa que todo lo que hacemos, en su gran mayoría, lo hacemos en inglés para un mercado anglosajón, Y en el mundo actual, en la dinámica como se hacen los proyectos, de manera ágil, usando Scrum, de mucha interacción con los clientes, el uso en inglés, tanto oral como escrito, pero sobre todo el oral, es clave. Y realmente formarse de esa manera, generando tecnología e interactuar en inglés con el nivel que vemos, realmente merece un aplauso porque sin duda los están formando para trabajar rápidamente en el mercado y para poder trabajar con clientes, con empresas locales de alta calidad. Y lo tercero es el proceso de formación que ustedes tienen. Las tecnologías que pude ver son tecnologías de vanguardia. Sin duda están alineadas con lo que el mercado necesita hoy en día. Otro aspecto clave de la enseñanza y la formación es hacer un proceso de formación que lleva su tiempo, lo sabemos, pero que además cuando termine ese proceso, el proceso de inserción en el mercado tiene que ser lo más rápido posible para que los alumnos y las personas que resuelven estudiar esto no se frustren en ese proceso de encontrar rápidamente un trabajo. Entonces, las cosas que vi están todas alineadas con lo que la industria hoy necesita. La industria hoy necesita más o menos 3.000 personas por año para poder dar respuesta a la demanda de lo que hoy se necesita, y ni que hablar si le sumamos a estas 3.000 posiciones la demanda que empiezan a necesitar empresas que ya están mirando a Uruguay para instalarse. Tenemos alguna que se va a instalar por acá en breve, que va a ser muy grande. Tenemos otros proyectos, otras empresas que se van acercando a la CUTI para entender. Y sin duda tenemos el desafío de la formación acelerada de talento para poder cumplir con esa demanda. Así que solamente me resta felicitar a los alumnos, felicitar a Holberton por este tipo de iniciativas. Así que sin duda desde la CUTI estamos muy contentos de estar hoy acá y felicitaciones nuevamente. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Carlos, por tus palabras. Agradecer nuevamente a los hiring partners y amigos de la casa que nos acompañan hoy, y también a los que nos están viendo por YouTube, que me fueron escribiendo perdón que no pude ir, pero los estoy siguiendo en este momento. Muchas gracias también. Los invitamos a tomar un café afuera y a ver algunos de los proyectos que les fueron comentando para poder probar y hacer las live demo ahí afuera. Muchas gracias.